I didn't disaster the film of carry for 24 years. Imagine. Oh, they Johnson, they say that Johnson there. I seen it. I 24 years will carry it. If I don't worry, look at the kind of place. Will you imagine the kind of place? So, what become of the people in Sonu West Point, Plantain, Doe community? If Johnson can be like this, they come here. 2023, if we kick them out and me with the Liberia, we serious. Seriously, a real trauma here. Real trauma, man. Look at the campaign. Imagine I be working for the mirror here. Or 15 minutes I just walking in the car, dirty water. Yeah? Water entering the people room there. And when they ready, they say, we carry we have for 25 years. Sanama Swan. We'll kick them out 2023. I didn't disaster the film of carry for 24 years. Imagine. Oh, they Johnson, they say that Johnson there. I seen it. I 24 years will carry it. If I don't worry, look at the kind of place. Will you imagine the kind of place? So, what become of the people in Sonu West Point, Plantain, Doe community? If Johnson can be like this, they come here. 2023, if we kick them out and me with the Liberia, we serious. Seriously, a real trauma here. Real trauma, man. Look at the campaign. Imagine I be working for the mirror here. Or 15 minutes I just walking in the car, dirty water. Yeah? Water entering the people room there. And when they ready, they say, we carry we have for 25 years. Sanama Swan. We'll kick them out 2023.
Government does not know the plight of their citizens. They do not know how their citizens are suffering in this place. They had no good leadership in this government. The government had no good leader.
But over the period, we saw police chasing people out of here. But
they are still corrupt people. They are all MCC. They are now even police. They are Jefferson Koji police. They are not police. You don't know them. They are Jefferson Koji police, city major of this city.
So you are not being allowed to
function another city operation.
How are you coping with the mandate? You are not being allowed to do your regular business, but you are still here. How is it like for you?
I'm coping with them. They told me to not go on the street. They said they're facing the road. And I'm not on the road. I'm far on the road.
So that means you still doing your business smoothly?
Yeah, I do my business not smoothly. I have myself and do my business.
So hiring yourself to do business, is it preferable?
Yeah, but for now, I gotta feed my family. I guess only to do the job to support my family.
Did you vote for this government? Did you support this government?
If I vote for the government, I'll be a dead man. And I will not vote for the government in my life because they had lack of leadership ability.
So when you say lack of leadership in terms of what?
They do not know the plight of their citizens. Even the president does not know the goal.
But the development of this road is an advantage.
Yeah, we want development. We need development. But since last year, July 10, up to now, and they shot this thing. You take 1 year, and the phone is in your hand. This phone is a World Bank project.
And they also took several times to relocate people from here. Are you also considering that?
Even when we relocate us, this regular market is a commercial center of this Republic of Liberia.
So that means it should remain as it used to be? Is that what you're saying? It should remain as it used to be, overcrowded, overpopulated?
I'm not saying that it should remain overcrowded, but you cannot take everybody from this rally, so no stores are left. Business will always be around.
Okay, so that's the issue. I think that's why they decide to close the stores temporarily.
Yeah, but when you close the store, I mean, stopping people from coming to rally.
How do you think the road construction work can go on safely or smoothly if people are still here?
If people are not around, you see the barricade down there. You see the barricade. When there's some rival when they're facing the channel or Japanese government were facing it. Were you there? You saw the road, how they were facing it. You get demarcation where citizens to pass, and the citizens were passing were all hindrance. Why they can't do the thing? They carry the road from Program Factory. Then people were setting out right there. They put demarcation. Demarcation were there. People were setting, and they still not facing the road. But it's a politics on the day. People had a store, Jefferson Koji and the public minister. They had a store, in Omega. They force people to go there. There's a politics under the whole thing. They had their stores, operating.
So to conclude, what would you like to say?
Let us say the government, this government had the tours that the business people of Liberia we don't want the business people, spectators to the economy. But now we are expecting spectators who are going to grow up all of business.
Where is the bad development?
Where is the development? The development can complete. While the phone is still ahead. So, they spread the phone. They want to put blame on the business people.
Are you aware that before, development take place, there's also be, probably a disruption or destruction?
Yeah, we agree, but when you disrupt your citizen, you should tell it West Italy. You know that it plays a commercial area. That everybody will not live on this place. Go down demarcation that a citizen will live, send their children to school. But through the business will do it, they will create fund to send our children to school and pay our family.
So if you don't make business for 1 week, or maybe there were no specific day set up, maybe that you come back to your store or your late shop or your food. If you don't make business for the past time, maybe hard yourself. What will lead to your
If I
family?
don't make business for 1 week, it affected me.
What effect how on you?
Why effect? You know why effect?
I want to know. I don't know what effect how I want to know. That
How the children will eat. How the children will eat. How I send them to school. How I pay their transportation to go and come. Great effect.
all right. What your name?
Sabi Yuma.
Thank you.
24 years inside. I let disaster the film of carry for 24 years. Imagine. Oh, they don't see this, they don't see this, they don't see there. I seen it. I seen it. I 24 years will carry it. If I don't worry, look at the kind of place. Will you imagine the kind of place? So what become of the people in Sony West Point, Plantain, Doe community? If Johnson can be like this, they come here. 2023, if we kick them out, then we and me with the library, we serious. Seriously, a real trauma here. Real trauma, man. Look at the campaign. Imagine I be working for the mirror here. 115 minutes, I just walking in the can dirty water. Yeah? Water entering the people room there. And when they ready, they say, we have for 25 years. Sanaman Swan, we'll kick them out 2023.
New leaders who know how to create jobs, who know how to grow the economy, who will prioritize the Liberian people first before they prioritize themselves. And this is what I offer you, the Liberian people. The other universal truth that I want to share with you, my fellow Liberians, is the best predictor of future performance and future behavior is past performance and past behavior. And again, I ask you to look at my record of job creation, of success, of managing large budgets without one penny going missing. All of these things you can look at and compare to the other candidates. And again, you will see that my past performance and past behavior is a good predictor, a good indicator that what I commit to, we will deliver. There are 5 priorities we have, and we call that the what's. And then there are 5 things we call the how we'll do it. And those priorities are as follows. Our first priority is infrastructure. Simply put, it's electricity, it's roads, it's water, and it's internet and cell phone connectivity across Liberia. We have to invest in infrastructure. That is the top priority. That's the basis on which we can and will do everything else. The second priority for us is job creation. There are too many unemployed, underemployed, and unemployable Liberians. The unemployment rate is over 85%. And therefore, job creation is our next priority, creating jobs for the Liberian people. Our next priority is agriculture. We are a country that do not feed ourselves. These are things we can do for ourselves. We should be producing rice to feed ourselves. And my commitment is that by the end of my first term in office, we will be self-sufficient in rice production. And within education, we're focused on vocational training, teachers training, and adult education. But we have to educate our young people because, again, that's how we can help them create jobs. That's how we can train farmers. And so these things are all linked together. And our final priority in terms of the what's is health. Because you can have good infrastructure, you can have a good job, you can feed yourself, you can have great education, but if you don't have your health, it doesn't matter. And so health is our fifth priority, and there we're focused on primary health care and preventive health care. So those are the what's we'll do for our people, for the Liberian people. How are we going to do these things? The first how is we want to engage Liberians differently in the transformation of our country. We call this hearts and minds. How do we get all Liberians to participate in the changes that are required? We're going to use arts and music and culture and reconciliation and religion. All of these things, we will be deliberate in using these things to engage us as a people in this transformation process. And so we're doing some work on how we can make those things happen. The next how is that we're going to find the money. We have to find the resources, the money, to do all of the what's I mentioned earlier. And the way we'll find the money is first, we'll go after waste in government. You know, we spend a lot of money on things that we don't need, or we pay too much for things that we do need. So for example, I believe the vehicles we buy for our government officials, we spend too much money on that. We should reduce the number of vehicles, and we should buy less expensive vehicles for our government officials. We need to reduce how much they make so we can pay teachers and civil servants and police officers and the military officers and healthcare workers, people who actually do the work. We need to pay them more money and reduce the gap between those at the top and those who actually do the work. The other way we'll find the money is going after this thing called corruption. You know, corruption has been the bane of our country. Is the primary reason why we are as underdeveloped as we are today. And we will aggressively go after corruption. The first thing we'll do is we will appoint a corruption czar, a minister in charge of corruption in the presidency that will coordinate all of the agencies that are meant to find corrupt officials. Secondly thing we'll do is we'll make sure we are giving the resources, the money, the right people, the right logistics to the anti-corruption agencies, the LACC, Liberia Anti-Corruption Commission, the General Accounting Office, the Public Procurement and Concessions Commission. We will make sure they got the right resources to go after corrupt officials. After that, when we find people who are corrupt, we will prosecute them, we will put them in jail, and we'll seize their assets. It will not be good enough for you just to resign. Okay. So those are the things we will do to really go after corruption. I have committed that I will not take a salary. The salary that is paid the president, I will allocate it towards helping to fight corruption. That's how important I think it is to us. And then the other way we'll find the money is we'll make sure we're getting full value, the full monies we're due from our natural resources. We'll look to exploit other natural resources so we can get the funds required to fund healthcare, to fund infrastructure, to create jobs, etc., etc. So finding the money is the second how. The next how is we want to create a government of inclusion. We want all sections of our country to be represented in the government. We want opposition political parties to be in government. Because we believe that having a government inclusion will help all of us make the right decisions. It will make sure that we're spreading the resources of our country across the entire country. And then the last two hows, one is growing the private sector. We will focus on growing the private sector so Liberians can primarily benefit from that growth. No longer should Liberian business people be spectators to our economy. And we want to actively support Liberianization and encourage and provide credit and other facilities to Liberian businesses so they can participate. And last but not least, we will use technology. We'll leverage technology to help us achieve our goals. So those are the what's and the hows. But let me end by leaving you again with these two universal truths. One is we cannot keep doing the same things, my people, and expect different results. We cannot keep electing the same people with the same experiences and expect Liberia to change. We need to elect and select different people to lead us, to serve us, to help us manage and run our country. And the other universal truth is the best predictor of future performance and future behavior is past performance and past behavior. And on those two counts, I believe I stand head and shoulders above the other candidates expiring. Together, we will change Liberia for the benefit of all Liberians. We will transform our country. We will give us a new start, a fresh start, so that all of us can benefit from this country we love. I thank you. God bless you. God bless the Republic of
Is good. Things are heading in the positive direction as far as I can see. I think my new decision to support Mr. Cummings, because I think the last time I was on the show, I was still in the middle as an independent guy. Now I'm here now to inform your audience that I have now decided to support Mr. Cummings. So politically, things seems to be very healthy here for me, and I'm very grateful to God for the opportunity.
Now, somebody listening to you, Randy, will want to know why why you are not supporting Mr. Cummings, because listening to you some part of last year and the other part of this year, the nomenclature was Cummings was not ready, and your expose on Cummings not being prepared, that President will, but likely win a second term. Why the change all of a sudden?
Well, that's a very interesting question. In life, you have to continue to monitor how things make progress, and your feedback will determine on what are the challenges, the deviations, and when you begin to understand the deviation and the challenges, and the next thing to do is to put things into what I would describe as a solution mode. And I think based on what you just said, I made a criticism, I made a suggestion, and guess what? Folks in the Cummings orbiter, and I will be very specific here. A sister invited me to Florida and like, hey, come on, let's have the conversation. Because if you see something, you say something. You know, in the U.S., to prevent things from happening, you see something, you say something. And she was very upfront and called me and said, hey, why don't you come over and let's try to discuss what are some of your concerns? Because leaving your concern and on notice is going to pose an issue to our party and to our country. So I made a trip and we discussed. And I got to understand that folks in the ANC, if we start to judge them from the distance, we will misinterpret what their perception are. So I believe that it is a party that believe that they don't know it all, and I myself don't know it all, but together we can work together. So based on that chemistry that we built, it is time that we decide to move on because they recognize that they have some challenges, and I recognize that I have challenges, and together we can begin to put things together. So it's all about collaborating to make Liberia better. As they always say in the ANC, Liberia first, and Liberia being first means it's not just about you.
But prior to your visit, prior to the invitation, you started somersaulting gradually. I listened to some of your expose. The narrative was then leaning more towards that of Mr. Cummings prior to the invitation to go to Florida.
Yeah.
Were you being baptized in the back with information that you thought you were not adequately informed or you never understood some things, and now you were seeing a vivid picture of the reality of who Mr. Cummings is?
That's a very good question. I want to appreciate you for that. Um, in 2018, when I started to provide constructive criticism to the WIA administration after campaigning for him, there were many people who came on my show. Today they have their own show, and they started to see me for the first time as someone who is not like better driven, and many of them start to gravitate towards me. So when I started to carry out my evaluation, I tend to look at all the political candidates, especially the three political candidates that I call the politics of, the triangular politics. That means Cummings, Weah, and Boyka. I call that the triangular politics. So when I look at the two slides, leaving out the third one, Weah isn't doing well. You can relate that to Boyka. Boyka is not making any progress towards Cummings, and Cummings left there. So having known these two political candidates, President Weah and former VP Boyka, when I start to see what Cummings is doing in a positive sense, I did my own due diligence. And, I did my due diligence because prior to the election, in the 2017 presidential election, I never looked at what Mr. Cummings had in place because at that time, my intention was not to make Cummings president. I was ordered by President Weah. So as I started my journey as an independent, or let's say in the middle guy, when things started to turn in the direction that I believe that gravitated to me, it was when Mr. Cummings was being accused by some unknown people and some known people, especially when they started to castigate his character in the United States, is when I really did that 360 turn because I live in the United States here, you live here. Everything we do here, it is based on merit system. And from the work we do to the community we live in to position we apply for. So when I start to see people trying to castigate his character, I'll let no, this cannot happen while I'm here. So in response to that, I came up very hard to defend Mr. Cummings' character, not supporting him at that time, but what I believe that we all merit in this country here, Liberia men will say, suffer to get here. I will not allow anybody to ruin that. And then when I did that, I decided to further go beyond what I was doing. For example, I started to look at Mr. Cummings' activities in the country. I started to dig deeper, and I came across some of his platform, and I was like, geez, this is something that makes sense. And so moving forward, when I started to say things against Mr. Cummings, I said it in the way I said it. There were times that I got tough on him because I would say this: if I get tough on somebody, and this is my own secret, I'm letting you guys to know here today. If you see me getting tough on you, that means I like you and I think you can do more. Because that mentality comes from some of us who grew up during the old Shawty school days. Gerald, I think you used to go to Nukutan Cinema or to Roxy Rivoli. When you watch the karate movies, the teacher will be very tough on the student because they want the student to grow stronger. I integrated that into my professional life to say, you know what, if I care for somebody, I like somebody, and I think they can do more, I wanted to come up very pure, not at 100%, but the percentage should be around the high 90s. So I started getting tough on Mr. Cummings because I believe that this is somebody that can do the best thing. And guess what? He never gave up. And he and I will have a conversation here in April. He called me through one of his staffer. We had a conversation right on the same laptop, right in the same office here, and he spoke to me and said, I like your characteristic, and and he urged me to think about joining the party. And it happened in April, but I decided to put things on back burner and continue to do what I was doing. So based on what I think Mr. Cummings has put in place, especially his political platform, the solution of how he going to take care of things, the far what and the far how, I think if we continue to sell that to the Liberian people, not just on Facebook, but on local radio and through other community within the country, I'm targeting from now to December that people will be able to understand what the far what are about and what the firewall is about, because the firewall is going to look at what are the things that Mr. Weir is destroying today and how is he going to solve that problem. So those are things that drew me to Mr. Cummings, and that's how it started with my support for him.
So let me ask you this question. When you had this conversation with Mr. Cummings, April, let's go back a little bit.
Sure.
Prior to you supporting Mr. Weir, was there any day or time when you had an opportunity to talk to him, to tell you about his vision and platform and the things that he was going to do as it relates to rural dwellers, poverty? As you may be aware, poverty is the parent of revolution and crime. And if they have not continued to increase in number, that state soon collapse. So was he giving you any vivid picture, telling you, because I mean, you guys were forceful during the 2016, 17, and 18 election in Liberia. Were there a day or time that you had an opportunity to talk to Mr. Weir or now President Weir to tell you his vision and platform and the things he was going to do for the Liberian people? Or your thing was the days at Totmaha with your good friend Samuel Twell, and then looking at Liberia, the prevailing trajectory would change if these guys who were then on the substitute bench practicing and preparing for the upcoming election would change the prevailing trajectory? You saw anything that you can just go back and say, okay, yes, Mr. Cummings and Mr. Weir said this, and you are now saying something else. I think I can buy your product because your product is marketable. What's that deal?
Yeah. So the way, I would answer. Yeah. So the way I would answer the question is this. I believe that in 2016, when Mr. Weir was preparing to participate in the 2017 election, I I decided to support Mr. Weir because I felt that the massive exodus from 1989 to 2005, around 2016, I believe that Liberians who came in the country before the war started and Liberians who migrated during the course of the war, I believe by 2016, many of us have acquired many skills in this country, and we felt that our contribution would be a universal contribution to George. We are having lived in Europe and learned some of the European inclusion and not exclusion. And I felt that the led administration that really derailed the country future, we could not sit here to give Borka that opportunity to add another more 18 years to extend the suffering and corruption of our people. So based on that, I decided to support Mr. Weir. But supporting Mr. Weir was to give every Liberian an opportunity to be welcomed back home and to have that opportunity to build a middle class, because I felt that many Liberians at that time, and today I'm still confident that Mr. Cummings will actually tap into what I'm explaining right now. That is the diaspora Liberians. Not every one of them want a job. They want to do business. They want to go back home and do things for other Liberians. This is an opportunity that I saw personally, and I decided to support Mr. Weir, but Mr. Weir was not up to that task. Now, as far as meeting Mr. Weir, yes, between 2005 and 2010, I was traveling extensively across the country because I was working as an environmental scientist, traveling around. But then I often used to call on Radio LRB. I think there where you and myself met. And then once upon a time, I was somewhere in in Bismarck, North Dakota, at a Radisson Hotel. And then I got a call from Asiva Tokwa, who was then the CDC chairman. And then he called me and said, "Hey, Randy, you sound to be a very smart guy. I need you on a team or CDC." And I was like, "What? CDC? I don't think I want to be with CDC," because I said to him, "The boy just came out of the war, and I don't think we are ready to work with them yet." And he said, "No, but you can come to help to change things around." And I was like, "Okay, I'm not in Pennsylvania right now. I'm far away on company duty. When I return, we will talk." So when I returned, and I think that was around 2000, Mr. Weir had just lost the 2011 election. So in 2012, Mr. Vatoba invited me, just how the sister from Florida, I'm not going to say her name because I don't have the right to say her name right now because she are not giving me the liberty to say that. I'm very, consecutive with people names unless they tell me. So for the sake of the conversation, if I referring to her, I would just always say my sister. So Mr. Vatoba invited me to City Line Avenue in Philadelphia, and
That's a
CDC
smart
had a,
move.
yeah, thank you. So Mr. Vatoba invited me to attend the CDC workshop on City Line Avenue. So we talked. It was on a Saturday, and I left. It was not a distance for me. So I went to that event, and he like, "Yo, hey, if you come in, can you bring a PowerPoint presentation?" And I like, for what? He said, well, Knockout is sharing most of their seismic data and their, how they call it, their EMP, exploration and production document with the CDC. And we are struggling to have somebody help us understand that. I said, okay, I would do that. So we got there. I got there around 10. We met and we took some photos. And I think around 12, Mr. Weir finally came in, and then he sat down, and then we had a conversation. After we had the conversation, um, it was time Mr. Vatuba recognized me, and I went out there and I did one or two PowerPoint presentation, and then right after that, I saw Mr. Weir, and he extended a hand to me like this. Excuse for me stretching my hand for the camera. And he actually said he did a hand like this, and I walked over to him, and then we sat down. I mean, he has a very and at that time now, because now I don't see him to be the person he used to be when I met him. This time is different. So we sat down, and he said, I like your presentation," and I said, "Thank you." And he said to me, "We are challenging Liberia. We need someone who will look at what Nuka is doing." And I told him, I said, yes, right now Nuka is on EMP. It's called exploration with the hope of getting production to commercialize. So right now it's all upper class. There is nothing that has to do with commercialization of anything right now. And he took out his FIFA business card at that time and gave it to me and said, get in touch with me. But I felt that it was too early because he had just lost to Ellen, and Ellen was starting her second term in 2012. And I kept the card on my wall and decided to go about my normal duty. And then the following year in 2013, Mr. Va called me again to go to Baltimore to do another presentation, and I met folks down there. And then Mr. Va again encouraged me to be on Radio LRB. I think it was when I met you and we started to talk about the environment more and more. So people started to see what I was going into and what I was doing. And then the folks in Morovia decided to tap into me, and that's how I started to go on Fabric, Freedom FM, and then some folks came to me and say, "Hey, you need to start promoting Mr. Weir now because we feel that your input is getting very, very heavy here." So we will go in there. So yes, I did meet Mr. Weir. We talked about the environment, and I said that the EPA is just an empty frame that need to have compartment in it so that it can become better. And we left off, and then by 2016, officially declared at the end of 2016, I officially declared on Hot FM with Daniel Roger that I was going to support Mr. Weir because I feel that he was going to win. So short answer, yes, I did talk to Mr. Weir, and the photos are all around here today.
Okay. Look, not only just looking at the pictorial, but his response to was your presentation and things that he was saying at the time. I know you met him prior to the election, but sitting one-on-one to talk to him, was there something that really drive, that was serving as a driving force to drive your attention towards him that, okay, they saw my presentation, and this is what they're saying, this is what they're talking about in terms of environmental protection, not only just looking at the concession here or the concession agreement, but looking at the entire environment, because Monserrato is densely populated, and you know that. And in terms of sanitation, the place is deplorable. So he was then senator prior to that election. So was he saying something that was, really convincing you because you had this force. You are zealous, on fire, ready to talk any day, any time. Even when I try to talk you out.
Yeah. Yeah. So so yes, what happened? Like I said,
Mhm.
I believe that Mr. Weir presidency was something that was going to resonate with the generation, my
Okay.
generation, because our generation that was at the verge of graduating from high school, we felt that the 90s era was going to be our era to contribute to Liberia. And for some of us who got very lucky and travel abroad and acquire better education, we are coming to power just in 2017, even though we missed out on the 2000, the early 2000, where Ellen took on 12 years, we still felt that there was an opportunity. So as far as Mr. Weir and I sitting down, whether he really comprehend what I was saying to him, my intention was about getting him to get elected. And
Okay.
once he get elected, I will be giving the opportunity. But you mentioned someone like Samuel Toy, and Mr. Toy, I mean, we've been good friends and from high school days. And we met here in 2000 and 2001. After I came here, I was already in engineering school when he got here, and we talk about old days. So when because he ran We Are campaign '05, and I don't know how active he was in 2011. I didn't get to see him at the two workshop that I was invited to. Um, but we used to talk, and we used to talk most of the time. But when we got elected, and he was called from the Ivory Coast, we spoke, and I felt that, oh geez, this is the guy. I think he would better relate to what my intentions are, because he knows where we came from and how things are. And so when we are appointed him as finance minister, it was an opportunity that I think I could have explored to help my Liberian people, like everyone else who love that country, who want to put Liberia first. So he came to the United States in March of 2018, and then in Philadelphia once more again. We met at the CDC Propo premiere where they started, and then he like, I need you to come back to Liberia. And I'm like, no, I can't do that. And he like, what? I said, because I work over here and I have a family, and I can't just get on the plane to come like that. I need to have some letter sent to me from George Weah, because I met George Weah in 2012, and I showed him the picture. He like, oh, okay. And then he said, well, what do you really want to do when you get to Liberia? I said, well, I don't need a particular job to sit in an office. There are three sector in government that I want to look at. And he said, what are those sectors? And I said, one, I want to look at the EPA, because it is a brand new institution, just started in 2005. They
Mhm.
are not that strong. And I want to look at the Ministry of Lands. At that time, I think it was the Lands and Mines, but I think it called Ministry of Lands and Mines now, but it used to be Ministry of Lands and Mines Energy. And I said, I want to look at the Ministry of Mines and Energy. And he like, for what? I said, because there are a lot of subsurface taking place by foreign people from different border points in our country, and we must reserve our subsurface natural resources, and we must also reserve our forests for greenhouse gas program and incentive. So, and I said, the Ministry of Health, I want to look at public health, and and work with the national police if it comes to safety and other stuff like that. So he's like, yeah, but if you come to Liberia, we'll be able to set all those things and do that. I said, no, I can't do that, sir. I cannot do that. And we parted way because of the lack of protocol, and the lack of protocol. I'm a very principle guided person. I sometimes I share fun on Facebook, I do things, but when it comes to really working to the ethics of my standards, I don't compromise that. So it falls apart, team broke apart. But I thought that was an opportunity that he could have persuaded Josh Weah to say, hey, this guy is my buddy, I know him very well, but he never did those things, and team fell on deaf ear. And we tried to reconnect again. It didn't work. But then I figure out that look, I don't think things going to work out because they are running out of time and the people in Liberia are getting older. The damage is extending beyond many counties and totally in totality the country could be affected and it's going to take years because some of the natural resources, if it's depleted, it's going to take 50 to 75 or 100 years to regenerate again. And look at Nimba Mountain, look at bomb mines, and people taking our natural resources out. You don't want that to happen, especially if it's not done with some guiding principle like regulations is going to damage the country. So that was an opportunity, Gerald, that I saw that could have expanded what I really wanted to do in Liberia for the people, but it did not realize, through Mr. Toy and Mr. Weah himself.
Okay, let's come home a little bit. Let's look at the politics today in Liberia. When we look at the generation yesterday, 2016, 2017, 2018, it is generally believed that the young people were more gravitated towards that of Senator Weah, who's now President Weah, and the elderly folks, the appetite to vote is now diminishing because they believe that the young generation continue to make series of errors in terms of the people they are voting for. It is also believed that over the years, Liberians usually vote for rice and money. And sometimes I tend to differ with people after seeing most of the elections in the country, spend bulk of my time around the radio and TV. I said, no, the electors do not vote for money or rice, because if you go to every constituent or constituency and was given them rice, then you have to have more money to give all of these different towns and villages and chiefdoms and clans more money for people to vote for you. I think the people vote based upon sentiment, party sentiment, and lack of information. Talk to us a little bit. Rennie, many are looking at this generation, the young people, with the proliferation of ghettos, the proliferation of drugs, our borders are porous. Do you think the electors, especially the young voters, are adequately prepared for 2023 presidential and general elections with the appetite of the elderly voters now diminishing?
Yeah, so I think it's a very valid question there too, and thank you. The future of any country depends on the nursery of the young people minds that we prepare, because the nursery will become the idol and they will become leaders in our country, and that is why it is key that education, health, security, and the economy be a key priority. Priority. If you look at Mr. Cummings' platform, he hit on 7 points, and those things I just listed for you, they are all embedded within that, because he understands that you and I will age out, and the younger generation will be prepared to take after us if they are properly given the rightful education. And so it's in that, and that one of the reasons why I continue to gravitate towards him, because everything is laid out, and if you can read and write, even if you're willing to sit down and have somebody take 5 to 10 minutes of your time to explain those things to you that Mr. Cummings has already listed, you will see the big picture. Today's generation need to understand that the year 2030 will be the African proliferation of youth employment across the world. We are not prepared for that. The We Are administration is not really looking at that projection, because they don't have the quality of people who's supposed to do these things here. Now, are the younger generation prepared? Some are, but many are not. But how do we get them to align with those who are already in the know? We need to strategize ways by making this election based on 3 things. And I'm going to raise my hand here. Now that I'm taking an oath, but I'm just going to give it in my finger count. 1, this election is going to be based on the demographic. That is the age group. You mentioned about the older populations. They are aging out and they don't have time. 2, we're going to look at the geographic. Geographically, we need to look at all the 15 counties, but to win this election, we need to look at 5 major counties. For the sake of time, I'm not going to mention that here. This 3rd thing we're going to look at here is the economy. In order to create jobs, we must be able to have a working economy, and Mr. Cummings is going to do that very well. The next thing the election is going to be about is going to be about the issue in the country. And that is where I think the young people whose minds are not yet made up, Gerald, we need to make sure that this election, the message is relating to them. Let the message give them that projection, that GPS pathway to say, this is your future. This is your future that you are messing with. And they need to understand that their age last year will not repeat itself this year. Neither this year age will repeat itself in 2023. What do I mean by that? The older you get, the less likely chance you will have to participate in your country future. So when we make this campaign as the issue, focusing on the fifth one, which is the youth unemployment, and they need to be employed. So Mr. Cummings talk about job creation. He talk about youth empowerment. Job skills will be provided to the young people. In Zambia, the people decided to give that Zambian president one term because majority of the youth were unemployed. We are is in that same category today. So to get the young people motivated is for you to work with them. And that's what Mr. Cummings is going to do. He is
You think
going
he's
to
you,
work
you
with
think
them.
he's doing so? You think his message is now resonating with the younger generation? The reason why I'm asking this question, about a few hours ago, just before we came on the air, I was listening to something on Radio Deutsche Welle and that of Al Jazeera, and they were talking about Raila Odinga. Raila Odinga in Kenya was using hip hop music to draw the younger generation throughout his campaign. We saw we saw in the previous election, Mr. Cummings had a popular hip core artist in the person of Takunje, who was running on his ticket. But the message was from Takunje to the younger generation was not resonating well with them. And so I was looking at what Raila Odinga did with the younger generation, and then looking at the tally up to the time the poll closes today in Kenya. You can see that it's almost like something that happened during our 2005 election, the 1997 election, 2005 election, and that of the 2017 and 2018 election. The younger generation turn out, but most of them never have voter registration cards to vote. So in the absence of more awareness, because, sometimes, Rennie, many believe that the National Elections Commission will do it all in terms of voters education, awareness, but you will only notice history have proven over and over repeatedly that the National Elections Commission only run these advertisements just week prior to the election. And so it's up to the political parties themselves to create awareness that will have the voters coming from their towns and villages. That's what I'm asking you this question. Do you think the younger generation are now spending their time in the ghettos with the proliferation of drugs, do you think they are ready for this change? They're going to make a change? Because the generation we have now in terms of electorate predominantly are the young people.
Yeah, as far as the readiness go with the youth that are finding themselves in the ghetto, first thing that needs to take place, and with the short period of time we had toward election, is to canvas within that geographic. Remember, I said this election is going to focus on demographic and geographic. So the demographic and the geographic will be factored into engaging the community. We cannot leave them behind because their sense of correction is there. It just needs someone to help them recalibrate, and that will come from the strategy. You see, the art of politics, because politics is an art, all right, it's not a science. The art of politics is to be able to strategize, because politics is a game of strategy. Now, so what you're talking about, all right, is about how can we and how are we within the Cummings camp are strategizing things. What happened in the past and what you just mentioned about Raila Odinga, these are political campaign strategies. So right now, the Cummings team, and I'm not going to release information here to those because I know there are some eavesdropper here, but I will just skim over it a little bit. The Cummings team is very strategic. What you're talking about here now fall within the campaign strategy, and then to engage the different demographic of people will fall into the campaign objective, but it will be subcategorized into the campaign target. We must target different demographic. So those things are taking place right now within the Cummings camp. I am privileged to be on that team, but I'm not privileged to release information here because of confidentiality. So I'm just going to let you know. But there are efforts, there are progress that are being made to ensure that the very vulnerable people will be given an opportunity to vote, because we need their vote. And the way that will be accomplished is engaging them and talking to them. So there are plans on the ground, Gerald. Like I said from the beginning, and I'll reiterate myself, we are targeting from now to December. Hopefully by December, the name Cummings and his vision will be widespread, not just in Moscow County. It will be widespread in almost two-thirds of the counties in the country. So there's more to come. Progress are being made in the back end, but things are done very systematically and strategically based on the campaign strategy. So we are making those efforts, and I can guarantee you,
we hope we're not going to see something like Kenda Kaunda and that of Frederick Chiruba.
Well, there's something called case study. So there are folks out here, and I'm not going to be very, very open here because it is, like I said, political campaign is a game of strategy. We have our game, we have our strategy. We are earmarked the strategy. We are broken it down to objective, and we are having targets, and then we have the leadership in the different areas of what we're doing. So while it is true that Frederick Chaluba and Kiana have had their show, we remember research also play a major role in how we re-strategize ourselves and recalibrate ourselves. Our plan is not a science or a mathematics to say 2 + 2 = 4. No, we can always change. We use the snake technique. We go this way. If we see a blockage, we come this way, because it is determined by what we see ahead of us, and then we make that adjustment. So it is very dynamic. It is not static, but we are making progress. So every past scenario that you bring in, trust me, we are looking at those things critically. But our focus is
the reason why sometimes you hear me, since 2010, you know, man, I like to go back to history, and then I love to bring people back a little bit to refresh the memory and say, listen, the bus you in today, we saw some errors, and if I've seen those same errors now, we're going to be pointing them out and say, be careful before you go down the valley. That's what I'm making reference to Frederick Chiruba and that of Kenda Kaunda.
And I think you're singing to the choir, because I'm a guy who is rooted into history. And I'm a guy who my family would say I like to keep things. And I always like to take a historical approach to things, because the historical approach will give me the sense of what I want my audience and my listener to follow. So yes, so I think we align on that. We share the same common denominator, and it's good too, because it gave everyone a sense of looking back and see where things are. And as an engineer who is now into politics, we don't just let things go. We do what we call research studies on things that happened in the past. We determine why it happened and what can be done. So when it comes to politics, I tend to look back. I tend to look at things, and it's also based on how I make my decision as well. I made my decision on past, like Mr. Cummings always said, past performance will predict the future performance, and I believe in a fundamental phrase, because it helps you to grow and be a better person. So yes, so with everything that happened in the past, Liberia, Kenya, America, and other places, we are looking at those things, and that's why the Cummings team is so unique. We are very intertwined. We are very integrated with each other, and I really love that, because it gave everyone the flexibility. And one common denominator we have in our organization is every voice is respected, no matter who you are, short, tall, can't walk, don't have legs, as long as you got mouth to talk. Even if you don't have mouth to talk, you are respected in there. And Mr. Cummings, he said, always set the tune. And I don't think it's a regret for me to be on this team. I think this is the team that I had long been wishing for, and thank God to the sister who invited me to Florida. I think it was like, you are God of God. When Saul was going to Damascus, he got stopped by the angel, and I think that what was happening to me. So I'm glad to be to where I am.
So now you can see clear then.
Not only I cannot see clearly, but I can move freely too.
Okay. Well, folks, if you're just joining us, is a reminder that you are listening to the People's Program on Your Voice, Martha. My name is Gerald Cummings. And our guest tonight is Mr. Randy Dapple. I call him the Dapple man. Way back, well, there was a bakery on Ken Johnson Road. So if you went to MC, demonstration, SDA those days, then you'll be
Yeah,
familiar with the bakery called the Dapple Bakery. That's where we used to go for
yeah.
Kala, donut, Kool-Aid, and sweet bar. But tonight we're not eating donut, Kala, Kool-Aid, on a sweet bar, but we're talking Liberia. Rennie, you as an environmentalist, what's your take on the current EPA? When you look at Liberia today, what do you see?
Well, I see so many regrets, and I see so many missed opportunity ranging from the Ellen Johnson administration. Because if you think about it this way, Gerald, Charles Taylor, I think one of the legacies that will always remind me of Charles Taylor is the establishment of the EPA. Because it was during his administration that the EPA was established. For every bad thing, there will be some good things. And that the EPA establishment under Taylor is something that I will always commend him for, because I think he was somehow very concerned about the environment. As an economist, I believe there is environmental economics that people study. So I think from that background, he saw the environment, because if you also think about it, the environment is the first source of everyone's income. Our people in the countryside use the land to farm and sell the farm to get some physical cash. So Mr. Taylor, during his time in office as president of Liberia, established the EPA. But unfortunately, the on-site sources, the capacity to strengthen the EPA during his administration were very limited because of his style of leadership. Many countries did not do business with him. Now, when Ellen came to power, she had all the floodgates, everything was open up. But Ellen misused that opportunity to grow the EPA. But what in the midst of all the missed opportunity, we started to see the influx. You spoke about Mosurado County. Prior to the election between Darius Dillon and Thomas Falad, the current and the recurrence and the growing of the population. Let's take the recurrence from there, but the incremental population growth in Mosurado County amounted to 1.1 million people. That means the county itself is overweight. Is overweight with the population of people, and then in that process, people got to eat, people got to generate diet, people will provide and create air pollution, people will contaminate water, people will contaminate the soil, and you will see all these things happening. So if Ellen had that opportunity to focus on what I just listed for you guys here, the EPA would have been a very vital corridor to curving those things that I just listed for you, and then a robust program would have been put in
But I
place.
think they had a robust program prior to this administration, because I remember my days on the radio, I raised an alarm with the illegal mining of sand on our Vera beaches. That include the 5th Street, the 9th Street, the 10th Street, and the 12th Street area. And people were as far as under the Gilbert Talker Bridge, they were mining sand around there. The Gardner's Somalia Drive Bridge, there was illegal mining of sand going on our different beaches, including on the different beaches rather, and on the different beaches in our country. And that was when the government decided to talk about the ministry of public works had to come in, and the Monrovia City Corporation with these different policy to explain the environmental laws that are there. But and you're right, Monrovia is indeed densely populated, but I think they were doing extremely well as compared to this administration with the proliferation of diet all over the place. I mean, Rennie, you being
Yeah,
an
so
environmentalist, common sense can tell
yeah,
you diet will kill people.
of course. So I won't support you when you mention the word robust under the any administration. I think they were making progress, so I will substitute robust for progress, because what led to where we are today is Eddie Johnson study administration failure to understand that policy. You see, there are three things that govern the EPA. You have the law, you have the regulation, and then you have the policy. The policy is not something that stays forever. Gerald can bring in his policy, it will be implemented during his time. Once he leave, it's done. But when
So
you
are you
have
saying the
regulation,
regulative arm was not proactive?
not technically the arm, but I would say regulatory program. Yes, when you have regulatory program are created by the institution itself. So just to put this into context, when the EPA was legislated by law, it created itself from the representation of the body within the national legislature. So they create that EPA. Now, it is incumbent upon the EPA administrator to now begin to put into place regulations. Regulations. All right. So when you look at the regulations, it is coming from the institution itself. The best example that I can give is not a good one, but I will try to make it better. So think about your wife giving birth to your son or daughter. That child is born and your wife said, Gerald, yeah, it's the baby here. I'm going to take a year off. What are you going to be doing for that child? You're going to feed that child, you're going to clothe that child, you're going to take care of that child through the growth process. So the law that created the EPA and other ministry came from the national legislature. It's a law. And law alone cannot govern the EPA because the law only look at things from a very strategic point that has to do with justice and other things. But what the EPA should be doing now is to create regulation because the regulation will create other programs. Like for example, what is the regulation regarding sand mining? What is the regulation regarding open burning? What is the regulation regarding contaminated water? What is the regulation? So the EPA owner Ellen missed out on that opportunity, and then we are king and inherited that. So when you see people doing things in the country that doesn't align with anything, Eddie may have policy in place that Mary Broad will carry out, right? Mary Broad will go here and the EPA will go here. So everything they did where they had community cleanup, those were policies that Ellen was using. They were Ellen policy. Remember when Donald Trump took office, he wanted to prevent certain people from coming to this country here. It was Donald Trump policy. It was not a law. Today he going with Biden King, he reversed all those things. So whatever Ellen did, it was on a different policy. So when we are took over, they were very ignorant of what the EPA is
So
all about.
are you saying those were not city ordinances that were on the book? They were just doing things of their own?
No, yes. The city ordinance was there, but they didn't implement that because the ordinances will actually tell you what to do. All right. So what it came to do is when you have an institution that operate on ordinances, or we call municipal code in America here, depending on the state you live in, they also have from the regulatory body, aside from the city, they have the EPA, they have different institutions. They should have in place regulations. I don't care how they call it, but the regulations should be honest within every institution. It should be technically a law that no matter whether we are leave, who comes in there, those laws should stand. They should stand because it govern and strengthen the institution. So Mr. Weir, EPA doesn't have that because the way the EPA works, the EPA is the Attorney General for the environment. They protect the environment for any source of pollution. Just how you have the Attorney General who represent the Justice Ministry to prevent crime and other things, the EPA is the Attorney General of our environment. Now, if the Attorney General does not have the capacity to police, to freeze, to put in place regulation, what do you expect? And as the Attorney General of the environment, part of their responsibility is to work with the city across the country because cities like Morovia, they generate dye. And whatever they generate, the EPA will come in there and say, hey, we are the Attorney General of the environment. When we see bad behavior from human activities that tend to create an adverse effect on this soil of ours, especially in the city, what are you doing to regulate this thing? Because if we don't let you know about it, by putting in place your ordinances, they will destroy things. Then the city itself will have municipal code, like building, where to build and where not to build. And then the way the government is structured, the Ministry of Public Works, they have the division of zoning code. And then the EPA will say, look, we have wetlands here. We cannot build here. So we want to make sure that Ministry of Public Works that is responsible for zoning. These areas should not be built. So whoever want to build, guess what they're going to do? If you live in Monrovia, you apply to the city of Monrovia. They will work through the EPA and the Ministry of Public Works. They will work together to determine whether a particular land or spot is accessible or allowed to be built. Because
Okay,
the EPA,
Mr. Dapper, we're going to hold you there a little bit on the environment. Let's look at the CPP. I know that over the years there have been series of political hula baloo all over the place with the CPP. But in the corridors today, what we are hearing is that there's something in the pipeline for the CPP. Do you see a new CPP? And do you think that CPP or this new CPP, will be more robust rather, in terms of cordiality, in terms of making sure that the incumbent does not have an opportunity for a second term? Do you see a CPP that will be more forceful?
Well, I won't say a new CPP. I would say a resuscitated CPP, because the CPP was actually doing well, but some group with inside decided to attack the CPP itself, and put that into some type of shock. It was actually unconscious. And then after Mr. Cummings put everything that we all saw behind him, he decided to resuscitate the CPP because the progress was on course. And as far as the new resuscitated CPP, I see hope and I see a potential and I see that as an opportunity. Remember, Mr. Cummings is still within the CPP. He never left. He, along with the remnant of the party chairman, the Liberty Party, they are together holding things down, trying to realign what had been taken out of place, because they believe, you spoke about past cases there, Frederick Choluba, Kenneth Kaunda. Mr. Cummings believed that as chairman of the CPP during his time, he managed to give Dara DeLong a re-election with over 290,000 extra votes. He managed to give Board Charles for the first time the opportunity to be a senator. He managed to give Simeon Taylor an opportunity to also be a senator. He managed to also have Nyambi Kanga re-elected. So Mr. Cummings understood the unity within the party that represent the collaborating party. So I believe with what has happened, he still believes that the target to get George Weah out of office politically in 2023 is to reach out to other political parties to resuscitate and begin to rebuild the CPP under his leadership or caretaker leadership at this moment, along with the ANC. So I think any politician out there, whether
Do
it
you
is
see
Keo
progress?
Gongolo, whether progress has been made, but negotiation will determine the progress. And that's what Mr. Cummings is working towards as well. More negotiation, more reaching out, more knocking on doors, more making phone calls, email, texting. The goal here is for Mr. Cummings to
Even
get
if it
in
means
there.
you have to bring Barabbas on board, you have to negotiate.
Whatever it takes, because here's the thing here. Our election is not an electoral college determinant here, like in America here. Our election is every hair should be counted. So the philosophy of the CPP, Mr. Cummings, ANC, CPP, and the Liberty Party combined is to get every vote counted within our election. And how do we get those numbers? Is to reach out to whoever is willing to join the collaborating political party. Yes, under the leadership of Mr. Cummings. Now, when we look at that from the subcategory 2, we who are the frontline people, how we try to integrate and apply that logic as well. We will come to you and say, Gerald, which party do you belong to? If you're independent, that's fine. If you belong to a political party, that's fine. We will tell you, for example, if you belong to a political party, we will tell you, look, you don't have to leave your party to vote for Mr. Cummings. Why? Because like I said, the election will be based on 5 things, but we will begin with the issue. What are the issues? List of things that you never achieve or manage to make some progress during the WIA administration. There will always be issues. So we encourage oppositions, partisan to remain in their party, but support Mr. Cummings and vote him into office because the fire words that were never given to you by George Weah, Mr. Cummings is going to do that. And the message is really gaining momentum, Gerald, because for our group, we see ourselves as the independent supporter of Mr. Cummings. We is factoring into the franchise of the CPP, but it's at the community level. So if you look at how we are structure our matrix, all right, how we structure the matrix, we are actually doing it systematically and we are doing well. So the CPP will grow over time. All it takes is the engagement, all it takes is the unity among all ANC from the high ups to the middle and down to the basement. We all have to do our part. But the CPP will emerge because you know what? The statistics I gave you about DeLong and the other senators that got re-elected or elected for the first time, it sent a sharp wave to Mr. Weah. Mr. Weah became not only intimidated, but he was completely in shock when Mr. Cummings' leadership came up with that. And I think the Unity Party people have realized that. We start to see some softening of tone right now toward Mr. Cummings because Mr. Cummings knew that this is the path and he's sticking to it and nothing going to change him. And he doing extremely well. And I think you, Gerald, yourself need to come on board because I know you are different before where we are, but I'm going to play the role you played 5 years ago. I want you to come and join us here to do what it takes to get everything. Every head count, every vote count. It doesn't matter what you say to Mr. Cummings yesterday. You are welcome today. I am a symbolic representation. I think you mentioned that from the beginning that I was very tough on Mr. Cummings. Yeah, Mr. Cummings is a politician. He got a very thick skin. He understands that people express their desire on things. If it doesn't work, you also take an authority route because he principally understands the fundamental democracy of our democratic process is about numbers. People must get more number on their side in order to win an election. And with that in mind, he is opening his arm every day, and people around him are also opening their arms. Somebody can be your foe yesterday. You can come and become friends through some sort of truth, and it's all what Mr. Cummings is looking for. And I think we're making progress in there.
The voice of Rennie Dapo. Now, Rennie, here's another issue that I want to ask you. I want us to talk about. But just before we talk about that issue, I'm going to bring in something. And then when we come back right after this, we'll talk about something here. Somebody asked me this question. Just before we go, let me ask you this question. The text message to me say that whenever you are on the other side of the street, Jiro, people will not like you. But the moment you join their party, they hailed you. Look at the comment section. You will see that people hailed Rennie Dapo today. But yesterday, Rennie had no idea on the thing she was talking about. So prior to going to Florida, on your way to Damascus, when you had an encounter, prior to this encounter that you talk about earlier on, alluding to earlier on, prior to this encounter, what was the feedback from members of the ANC prior to this encounter that you described? I love the biblical scenario you gave, like Paul on his way to Damascus had an encounter and his eyes were open to the reality. So prior to you seeing the reality, what was it like? Was it cordial?
Well, it wasn't cordial in every capacity or every scenario. But what I can say to you, politics is a game of strategy that each side wants to win. But get what? We are all in one country fighting for a common good to put the country first. And I got it. And I understand that. And I think every Liberian should take their personal feelings out of politics because it is an art. It is a strategy. that come with different games to be played. But the idea is, if someone comes to you and say, look, I think your strategy, your platform, your idea is better and I would like to support it, there should be no resistance to that, because our democratic process will make any candidate the winner depending on the numbers you got. And with that fundamental mindset that election is about numbers, no matter what somebody said yesterday. And that come from Mr. Cummings. And that's one of the reasons why I love Mr. Cummings, because he sets the tone. He's the first person to set the tone. And you and I work in corporate America. They always say leaders should lead by example. And Mr. Cummings, continue to demonstrate that. So when I was on the other side, there were people who differ with me when I got the skill off my eyes and decided to support Mr. Cummings. But I understand that it will come around because it's politics, and and Jay Randy is coming with his idea, he's coming with his support, and not everyone loves change, but you got to prove yourself. So me being within the ANC, being a guy who been on the other side, battling or with the ANC people in favor of the CDC. You know the story of Saul, who became Paul, when he first went to the Jews and said, hey, I'm a changed man. I'm sure there were a lot of people who were very skeptical. If they even slept with him in the same house, they kept waking up or maybe kept their own eyes open. I got it. People have to have their own sense of probe. They have to probe you to see who you are. They have to test you to see who you are. And I'm not moved by what they're doing, but I just have to prove myself to say, you know what, I got it. I know what you are aiming for. And so we will put our dirty clothes together, we'll wash them, and we'll see which one will make us better. Because at the end of the day, we all want Liberia to be fresh, and we all want the Liberians back home that don't have the opportunity we have. We want them to have the opportunity. So in that process of getting to know each other, in that process of rejecting or trying to accept or trying to probe who Randy is, and Randy trying to push back, because there are times that I push back too. So the push and pull is giving us the sense of who we are and what we really want. And I think it is a good battle to fight now, because when we get to finish with the battle fighting among ourselves and Mr. Cummings become the president, but then we have a new course of joining that will say, yes, we know what we stand for now, we know who we are, and then we can have a formidable force of people professionally that will support Mr. Cummings. So yes, so these things happens, and it's
Okay,
all
Randy, we'll get back to you. Let's bring this in, and after which, when we come back, we open the telephone lines.
Yes, sir.
Silence your phones. We don't need to overly remind you. That.
Well, folks,
I hope the captions are all set.
some members of our legislative caucus, members of our executive committee, and we're here today to have a conversation with the Liberian people about change, about real change, and the need for us, all Liberians, to be committed to change our country for the benefit of every Liberian. I will read a statement as was suggested by Moba, and then we'll take a few of your questions. My fellow Liberians, in 2019, the CPP, which the ANC remains an integral part of, was officially formed to be a viable alternative to the CDC-led government. This is because since the election of this CDC-led government, our country has descended into freefall. Many of you do not need me to tell you that Liberia is in a really bad place. You are feeling it every day and everywhere in our country. The president does not know what he is doing. Most of the people he employed, like him, do also not know what they're doing. They are managing the economy very poorly. Every day is a new corruption scandal of government officials stealing while people cannot find jobs. the harmonized pay of civil servants cannot even pay the cost of their transportation to work, or pay their children's school fees, or put food on their tables for a month because food prices are so high. People are suffering. We need to create jobs. We need to grow the economy. We need to fix the schools and improve the hospitals. We need to stop the stealing, obey the laws, and hold each other accountable. This is what political leaders should be seriously talking about, because these are what are affecting Liberians and are at stake in 2023. Many of you have heard that I walked out of the meeting with my colleagues at Bella Casa Hotel and of my refusal to attend a program to endorse Ambassador Boycott as standard bearer of the Unity Party. While many have commended my stance on upholding the rules as well as the commitments to democratic tenets we share in the CPP, some have described it as fueling and
Those days, people were building homes, not as compared to what we see today, okay? Not as compared to what we see today. But what do you make of such statement? And two, I listened to one of your Discord and you said, man, President Weah visit to the U.S. when all African leaders will be meeting President Joe Biden to discuss issues of national concern, he will not be proactive in the discussion. What were you alluding to when you said he will not be proactive?
Thank you for the two valid questions before you get to the line, and I want to appreciate you for bringing those questions up. Let me start with Minister McGill. I think the statement that Minister McGill made is a clear declaration of the massive stealing. There are two things he said over there. When you listen to the entire conversation he had, he used the Elling administration and accused them of taking money and going abroad. So he squarely accused Elling of actually corrupting the country by taking money out of them. So in a comparison scenario, he tried to create a condition that set him free, but wanted the people to understand that it is good to steal, but if the stealing you're doing is being put back into the country, he don't think that should be a crime, which I think is absolutely wrong, Gerald. I don't think if Mr. McGill had any message, that should be one of the messages that he should give to the people. Because what Mr. McGill said over there, it clearly defeats one of the sentences that Mr. Weah said during his inauguration, that anyone who is found into corruption will be persecuted. So for his right-hand man, McGill, to go to the people of Bangabong County and say to them, and I quote partially or in part, even if I steal and I build houses here, and those houses will remain here when I die. The ethical standard to that from me here is, and the fairness to that, it doesn't make sense to me. Because here is why. Why it is true that Mr. McGill is trying to justify corruption by saying, I will build houses here. Let me just take a reverse engineering approach to that question. What about those who are working in the government right now? What if they come out tomorrow and say, even though I'm working at this place, I have been stealing money, but guess what? I built a home in my town. What would be the reaction of Mr. McGill and Mr. Weah, especially with the anti-corruption and all the other independent integrity institutions? And let me toss the question back to Minister McGill too. Well, we understand that Mr. McGill is saying that even though he built houses there, there should be no reaction to that, right? So here are some of the hard button questions for Minister McGill. And I'm going to play this in a very re-admin way. So Minister McGill, we know we all can get sick in Liberia, right? So what about this? If Minister McGill gets sick, will he be taken to JFK? He shouldn't go out of the country, right? Even though the hospital at JFK is not up to standard. So if Minister McGill, George Weah, Samuel Toure, any government official gets sick, can we all agree that even though the hospital is not good, can we take them to JFK? They're not going to do that because it put their life at the highest risk. So they won't do that. And that is the dishonesty in Minister McGill's statement. There are schools across the country. There are healthcare centers that are across the country, but they are not up to the standard that we can see and say, you know what, George Weah is doing well. So aside from all those negative things, Minister McGill saw nothing else to talk about but to want to justify corruption as a way to say, you know what, it is acceptable practice that we should allow people to steal in this country, but build what they stole from the government. A lipstick pig is always going to be a pig. Let me just put it that way. When you see a pig with lipstick, it's the same regular pig. The only difference there, it got lipstick, but it's still a pig. I don't care how McGill tried to quantify these things. He had declared open season on corruption. He had reset the tune that people can steal in the country, but all they got to do is to invest the money. Is it a standard way of practice? No. I differ with him on that. And I think he owes the Liberian people an apology. Because if you look at it, every one of them who are building homes today, prior to them coming to office, including George Weah, they never built any home. They didn't buy no land to say we started our project before we got elected. They all started building houses after they became government official. So are they now telling us that, oh, we are now showing you guys that the money we steal in here, we're building houses around here? Like somebody told me, we need to look at all the homes they built and try to do a PowerPoint presentation. Now, coming to Mr. Weah, Mr. Weah is a showman, all right? He is a showman. And it would take anything, or if it take anything for Mr. Weah to get his will, he will go ahead and do it. They want America. They want Joseph Biden. They want White House that I don't think he might see because that conference will not be held anywhere in the White House. Mr. Weah is doing everything and anything to come here. To the fact that he becoming the same Peter. You know, our conversation today, Gerald, is more related to the Bible. Remember when Peter denied Jesus because he wanted to survive? Same thing with Mr. Weah. Those boys who are CDC, CPP, COP, they did some nasty thing to their fellow Liberians. And these people have been with Mr. Weah for 2 years. But because Mr. Weah believed that his chances of coming to America must be clean, he put the boss on the bus. But then when I look at everything that Mr. Weah doing, and when you look at the agenda that have been set by the Biden administration, you mentioned about youth. Mr. Biden now and his policy team, along with former President Obama, they believe that Africa is an opportunity that can create more jobs for young people on that continent. And with the Chinese trying to expand their imperialism, so to speak, across Africa, Mr. Biden don't want to waste that opportunity. And one of the ways that he can strengthen the relationship with Africa is through the African leaders. But there are things that the expectation of African leaders should do as well, including climate change. And over the years, the U.S. have been, especially the Democratic Party, have been the champion of pushing climate change. And Africa, with the vast majority of forests, they are being told to keep their forests, and they will be given some incentive. When you look at Mr. Weah administration, how many times have you seen Mr. Weah participating in any sort of climate change activities, from elementary school to middle school to high school? When last have you seen Mr. Weah discussing anything, whether it is press conference or any discussion on climate change? Nothing. So when he is coming to a conference that contains items that also include climate change, food security, and commitment to a better economy. And when you see this man and his government officials are not doing anything, especially with climate change, what is he coming to do here? I think Mr. Weah just want to come here to take photo with Mr. Joe Biden, and when he lobbyists, Bakari Seller or Riva Livingston, if they can get into the warehouse and he sit in one of the chairs and take a picture, that all that is on Mr. Weah's mind. I can guarantee you 100% that is the number one thing that Mr. Weah want to come to America. It's not to come and discuss any progress about improving the life of our people. He just want to come here. And his coming here, Gerald, is nothing but a big show because he doesn't even understand the issue. The president should have a council of environmental lawyers and environmental professionals.
But what made you think they're not preparing him?
Well, it's too late to be prepared now because it is one thing to be prepared to say something, but it's another thing to understand what you're going to say. Because remember, he is going to be interacting with people who live and dream and eat these things every day. It's not somebody going to prep you. Prepping you is like you get a gas in a tank. The more you use it, you're going to run out. The car going to remain. Weah is not prepared to come to the White House Summit of African leader to have any discussion. We are going to look at yet another embarrassment. He was never prepared. He's not prepared. And before I end here, there is something the non-honest country that are not fully engaged into climate change activities, they call them the non-honest participant in the United Nations database of country. Every 2 years, they present what they call the biannual update report, BUR. Since 2020, they took Ellen Johnson, that is the EPA of George Weah, took Ellen Johnson, said the old document, and just went and updated the names and submitted it to that UN chapter. And nothing has been done.
Okay,
So
Rennie, let's go to the telephone line. Let's see if we can get some of our people watching this broadcast this evening to participate in the discussion. Well, folks, this is a reminder that you are in tune to the People's Program, The Positive Show, aired on your Voice Matter page. And just to have you informed, we dialogue, not confrontation, issues, not personality. And we discuss here the issues of national concern, not war. So the invitation is yours. You can give us a call. The number is right on the screen. You got a stream. It's like 1 minute to put your point across. So give us a call, and we got a few more minutes to be here. Got a few more minutes to be here. So the invitation is yours to call us on the number on the screen. It's 720-513-7643. Give us a call and let us hear from you. Rennie, you could go ahead. You were saying something earlier on. I just wanted to open the lines and tell our viewers and listeners that the telephone line is
so just let me know when your caller make that call. But I'm still standing behind what I said, that Mr. Weah is not prepared. I don't care how much preparation they give him, how many rehearsals he goes through. This is something that he wants to memorize, and that's something that he should be okram with. For the past 5 years, Mr. Weah should be abreast on the environmental condition of the country, because at the end of the year, when he goes to do the State of the Nation address,
let's go to the line to take this caller, Mr. Dapo.
Okay.
Let's see. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, good evening. Your name and where are you calling from?
Good evening, Gerald. I'm calling from Minnesota.
Okay, we're listening to you. Randy, can you hear Abel?
Yeah, I didn't catch his name, though, but I can hear him loud and clear. I didn't get his name.
Randy?
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Dapo is listening to
you.
Ahead. We are hearing you.
Well, yeah. Thanks for the show, Gerald. I do follow you most often, and thanks for all you do. And I'm just going to welcome Randy Dapo to the ANC or being supporting Mr. Cummings. Thanks. I follow him last year. He and myself went back at it, and he has vast experience of knowledge, especially when it comes to environment and the environmental aspect. I think that's his area. And thanks. Welcome on board, Ronnie. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome, sir.
So, Randy, they're giving you your flowers before what, tomorrow election?
No, before I die.
No, you're not going anywhere. We want you to see this table. You know, since indeed you went around the biblical aspect of it, there's a saying in the Bible that says, "That prepares a table before men." So you got to be around to see this table.
I definitely will be. In Jesus' name, I will be.
Okay. But you know, when you said that, I was like, you know, I was listening to you, and then I like, Drenny, man, this is the president of the Republic of Liberia. The man was at the UN twice, putting forth Liberia case. What would you think at that meeting if given the opportunity? We'll not talk about, because look at, I grew up in the borough of New Town, to be precise, in the Connor West area. That entire environment now is in the Atlantic Ocean. From my house to go to Detour High School, from where I used to live to go to Detour, was a long distance. But Detour is now on the beach. But let's go to this caller quickly.
Okay.
Good evening.
Hello?
Hello, good evening.
Yeah, I'm calling from Indianapolis, Indiana. My name is Johnson Carver.
Good evening, Mr. Carver. What's your take? I guess you've been listening, following the discussion.
I just want to get to the point where Mr. Dapo mentioned the Minister of State for Presidential Affairs.
Mm-hmm.
So making those kind of reckless and irresponsible statements, and you think you helping the Liberian people, a lot of these guys came with nothing. And if the Liberian people see them today building these so-called mansions and other stuff that they sweat, I mean, they did not sweat for the money, they just stealing, and somebody proudly standing before the Liberian people and saying, that kind of low-class mentality that, I'm stealing, but I'm building things in the country. In the first place, you are building the houses. It's not for the Liberian people. You're building it for yourself. Yeah. It's like somebody saying they're stealing the money, building schools and hospitals. Those things are built, and they're profiting. I mean, they'll be profitable, not for the Liberian people. It'll be for themselves. So how can one agree that, the man is stealing? That kind of low-class mentality say, I'm building the country. That's not building the country. And this just come to show to the Liberian people that these guys don't care. They have just opened
the justification here is we are building in our country. We're not taking the money to bar. We're not taking it to Germany. We're not bringing it to America. And that's what that's what the electors would say. What do you expect the man to do? The man is building his country.
That doesn't still make sense. It don't make sense. Because it's not for the Liberian people. Mr. McGay, when he goes on a job or when they get defeated come 2023, he will be sitting in those houses and making profit because they'll be renting them. And sometimes they will not have the funds to manage those things. It will go down to the drain like we have seen other older government officials, did in the past. Go to Liberia, Monrovia, and see some of these former government officials dilapidated houses that they built before they didn't even finish it because they don't have money to continue the process. So you just waste the Liberian people money, stole it, and build something that you think will profit you, but then later on you cannot maintain. Building houses building houses is not just building the house, but you got to the continuation process. You got to maintain those houses, and I bet you, man, like Mr. McGill will not be able, with all the money he stole, because they are lavishing it, they are not using it properly. Economically, they will not be viable 10 years 15 years from now, those houses either they sell them or it will be dilapidated and will go into waste. So all those things all those things they're talking about is just, we have seen it before and we will see it with them again. We saw it Dota, we saw it Talbot, people who stole money and built houses. Right now, where are those houses? So it just don't make sense for any government official to say, yes, I'm stealing the money, but I'm not carrying it to Dubai, I'm not carrying it to, out of the country or whatever. Bill, support JFK, support Tubman High, support the University of Liberia, because that you're doing, other people will benefit. It will be a continuation of the government money going into useful infrastructures. So if Mr. McGinn said that I didn't listen to the speech or whatever, but I'm sure he's capable of saying it, because those are the lines of the corrupt government officials. So it's not surprising that I can hear that from Mayor Nathaniel McGill. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, my brother. Thank you for calling. So, Dapo, back to this entire thing that you talk about earlier on about the president participation.
Yeah, the president hasn't been briefed on any environmental situation in the country. There hasn't been any engagement from the president on the subject matter, and having followed the president for a very long time, I can say this to you for free, that Mr. Weir is not in any position or capacity to I won't say adequately discuss this issue, but to basically have a conversation on the issue. He doesn't understand anything about climate change. He doesn't understand anything about greenhouse gases. He doesn't understand anything about the greenhouse gas protocol standards. Because right now, Gerald, the level at which the conversation will be held.
The first thing you said earlier on, he's going there for a picture to get the pictorial for publicity. And if I also borrow from you, you think the president is going there because usually African leaders, whenever they come to these different summits, they get some good price. You think they're coming in for the money rather than coming to, network with others to see how best they can help them in terms of environmental protection?
Well,
because I was talking about the D12, the Nikrutan, and the look at Hotel Africa, look at Banja, and the Funde, all those places. Tuba was just like where I grew up. Tuba, 25 years ago, Tuba was just like the community I grew up in. But see, they're dredging the land and reserving and building it for tourism, whereas D12 High School is not on the beach. Rennie, another caller this year, so let's go to the line. Good evening.
Okay.
Yeah, hello, this is Mitchell Lonesome. How are you, Rennie?
This is who?
Okay.
It's Mitchell London.
Okay, welcome.
That's my boy, Michelle.
Thanks for having me.
Great to hear your voice, Chief.
Well, I'm just calling to kind of get a little input on what's happening in Liberia. From the people like McGill, I don't call him honorable man, I call him a horrible man, because he doesn't have the Liberian people at heart. He doesn't care. It is all about self-interest and how best they can enrich themselves.
Yep.
So the best we can do as independent supporter of ANC, like my brother Rennie would say, if you love your grandpa political party or your grandmother political party, you can stay with them, and still vote for Cummings. So I also use a scenario where I say, like, okay, it's almost like going to a Lone Star game, You leave from Pinsbury, I leave from Lockington. We're all on the same bus. We'll watch the game. And at the end of the game, we're going to come back home and go back to our various houses and homes, you know. So it's something like that we need to do in order to change this administration, because President Weah and his official government, they really don't care about Liberians. They really don't, because
you think
leader
so?
that don't care.
So the leader loved the country. The man loved his people. The boy loved his people.
No, his love is not real respect. Because take into consideration what kind of leader, his first priority when he gets into office is to build estates for himself. That is not love, you know.
Yep.
He just keeps fooling these people who do not understand politics, and every little talking they consider to be like a big project. That is not love. You cannot. So take into consideration, right? You got a wife, you got a kid.
Yep.
And every time your kids complain that there is no food, but every evening you take it upon yourself with your friends and go out and eat in the expensive hotel or the expensive restaurant. And you come back home while your kids and your family complain there is no food, but you feel happy eating, you know. So that is not love, that is fake love, because our people are so ignorant, they don't know. So every little thing that happens in Liberia, will celebrate. So the people that might will go and build like a house, and in the neighborhood where he built the house, he got people that live in like zinc houses and stuff. And he's the only guy that can afford electricity, can afford a big generator and all the stuff. So how can you say you love people, but you only care about yourself? That's not love, you know. Like Randy could say, you know, in politics, it's all about the moment. Yeah. So President Weah doesn't have any strategic goal to help Liberians. And like Randy said, he doesn't have press conference. How can President Weah have a press conference when he doesn't know what he really needs to talk about? Because the only way you can discuss a topic, you have to know about it, but he doesn't know. So such a guy, he's not a leader, he's just an opportunist to enrich himself, you know. So people that McGill, he already indicted himself with some criminal intent. You know, I won't say criminal intent, but he already committed a crime by voicing and saying that even though he stole some money, he leaving it into the country, he's not taking it abroad to use it. That made no sense, because it's not a good example to set for society. If you want a vibrant society, you have to live by standards. You see, like the United States, they do have a standard. You cannot commit a crime and walk around because you think you stole from the bank and went to the shelter and gave her the money. No, it doesn't matter. That's a crime you committed. So in this light, I just want to leave on this note and say I appreciate the show and enjoy it, and I hope other Liberians will follow through and try to inform our people before 2023 election, because what is at stake is very, very critical to our national existence as a nation and people. If we cannot get it right in 2023, we're going to be on the ballot list of the least country in Africa. So thank you very much, and I want to say bye now.
Okay. Randy, we got a few more minutes to go, but let's talk about the legislators. The guys for whom, I mean, those who ably represent their people, it's generally believe that they are representing their people. By constitutional provision, these are people that represent their constituents or constituencies. Looking at their performance today, looking at what is unfolding at the Capitol building, do you think we're going to see a reoccurrence of what transpired after the 2005 election, when the citizens got grievously vexed and decided to give some of the legislators a farewell card? Do you think that representatives and some of the senators who will be going for re-election during the 2023 general and presidential election will retain their seat based upon their performance today?
Is my lucky guess would be...
Hold on, somebody say, asking this question. Judas received 30 pieces of silver. He hanged Jesus Christ over to the religious leaders, but the gift he did not use. The legislators just the other day received 30 $5,000 each. And they placed their citizens on the bus, but now they all pointing fingers at President Weah. Whereas, like what happened to Edwin Mervyn Snow, with a group sitting at the Satana Pavilion and the other group at the Unity Conference Center, people receive $5,000 US. And this person want to put me on into this. Say, Mr. Cummings, I remember vividly you interviewed Representative Sir Joseph. Not Sir Joseph. He wanted this, I know who he's talking about. There's this guy, former Representative Sir Firebally. That's Firebally he's talking about. And it was Firebally, Representative Bolly, who told me that they indeed received $5,000 from the executive mansion to boot out Snow. So you think that the public will get grievously vexed to let go some of the legislators with what we're seeing? They are enriching themselves. The masses are suffering. They're not talking. They only talk based upon the fact that they want to put only President Weah under the bus, and they present themselves as light and angels around here.
Well, I think the people were surprised, many of them, Gerald, because every strategy they
Rennie, let me hold you. Just hold the rest of your talk. Let's go to the line. We got 2 callers here. Hello?
Okay.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
I'm hearing you loud and clear. Your name, please, and where are you calling from?
Thank you very much. This is Alfred Konowa, and I call you from Iowa.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Konowa. Go straight to the point. What's your take?
Thank you very much for having me on the show. What I want to say is that, gentlemen, it's so disheartening and it is so shameful that we will have leaders who don't have conscience. They just take advantage of the gullibility of our people and they try to use it against them. The resilience of our people, as I sit here in Iowa and look at the current situation in our country, it's really, really sickening me, I would rather think that at this time, 175 years, the country would be to a trajectory where young people will be seeking excellence. Young people will be seeking excellence in their various fields of study. But it is quite unfortunate that we have a situation, a country where few group of people can just go to the pool and lie to them. I was very, very angry this morning when I listened to Nathaniel Matthew telling our people and making our people say, they put our e-power here, the king is still going to carry the big houses there. Why did Nathaniel Matthew and George Weah and others refuse to audit the early 2017 government when they knew they had evidence that these people stole from the country? If for any reason Nathaniel Matthew and others felt that the king for real change to put the country to another level, we will not have this situation where Nathaniel Matthew will tell people say, even though we're stealing, but we're using the money on your so that we're supposed to be doing. Listen keenly to the video in the conversation that Nathaniel Matthew was having today with our people. It's so simple, as a Liberian who has come in this country where they call the United States and we've seen real progress in terms of governance. When you look at our country and see how these guys are ruining the infrastructure, they're ruining the institution, they're ruining everything. They will take a robust president and like minds Liberia in the next elections to remove these guys and bring real change. I am so disappointed in the opposition black. Up and now is still fighting. We cannot be appointed on the 5 years. I am so disappointed in the opposition black. We didn't have a hello, I'm hearing myself.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So like I was saying,
okay, just be brief now. Just be brief so I can bring other people on.
Yes, thank you. So just conclude, gentlemen, it is time that we begin with education. We need serious education to our people. Our people need to be educated. Without education, we will continue to see this cycle going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to the next caller. Mr. John Mawolo, welcome to AMC Flight 2023. Are you
How
riding?
you doing?
Are you riding first class or
Good,
what?
good evening.
Good evening.
I'm not riding on the first class. I ride only higher than first class.
Okay. Is that your own
We
money
got it.
or the party money?
My own money. In the ANC, we make the sacrifice for the party.
Ready? Ready crazy. Yeah, good evening, Mr. Marlo, and welcome to the program. What's your take?
Good evening. Hey, hi, Randy. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. We're talking to you the last time. We're talking to you the last time.
Let me say again, welcome to the ANC. And we hope together we can work and make it better for our country.
Yes, sir.
First thing first, does our country really want change? Do our people know themselves? Do they even care or respect themselves enough? Why am I asking these questions? Because if any of these is answered in the affirmative, then the name George Weah or the CDC not supposed to be in the argument of who will be president next.
True.
You cannot look. What's going on is not stealing; it's looting. You know, when people steal, they hide the stuff. When people loot, they take your stuff and put it on their head and walk right in front of you.
Yep.
And for the Liberian people to sit down and see people steal from them, loot their coffers while they suffer and they clap for them, one or two things. They're either under a spell or they're crazy. Because that thing cannot happen in any other country.
Nope.
Maggie wouldn't be brave to say that nonsense. We're all being run out of that place. But then again, it's either that the people under spell or they're crazy. Because it cannot happen normally.
True.
Now, as far as Mr. Cummings and the future of Liberia, I can tell anybody for free, and I can bet my neck on this. If Mr. Cummings is blessed and given the honor by the Liberian people to serve them in the capacity of president, that country will see a change that they cannot imagine right now. It's going to be positive change. And I can guarantee the Liberian people will never, after Mr. Cummings' term, they will never choose a fool again for president. Because we'll make sure their eyes are open. Their eyes will open so much the breeze will hide it. They will see what they're worth. They will know what they deserve. They will respect themselves to the point where they will not tolerate people abusing and misusing them. Our own people treating us like slaves in our own country, it should irritate us. But to hear people arguing about CDC or George Weah being president again, it makes you wonder. Are these people under a spell? Or are they living in an alternate reality?
They don't live in our country.
The funny part about it is that most of the people who talk a lot, if you ask them, do you have a job? They'll tell you no. When last you work? Oh, no, I never work. I can't find a job. So what are you defending here? Is it because you don't care about yourself, or you don't care about your family, or you don't care about your children? or you just love George Weah so much for what? Because he played football? Was he playing it for you? Did his money what he got, was it for you?
Even the one that he built a house with,
and on top of it, he lost everything. Yep. And you all knew that he was broke. And then all of a sudden he become president, he multi-millionaire, and you're still clapping? While you're going through the worst time of your life?
Yep.
We need to get serious about ourselves.
Yep.
I want to submit to the Liberian people in the voice of Professor Lumumba that we got a chance to make our country proud again. Mm-hmm. We got a son of Liberia who is able and capable, who has the capacity and the audacity to do right by our people and to bring into Liberia what we need most. This man is a wealth builder. Mm-hmm. A wealth builder means he knows how to make money for you.
Yep.
He's able to lift that country out of poverty. He has done it all over the world. We can't but give him the chance to do it for us. This man has no interest in stealing our money because he has his fame to protect.
Yep.
He got no interest in mishandling our country because he has his name to defend.
Protect. Yep.
He has already made his name. He has already gotten his fame. He has already made his money. He cannot afford to fail. And if he doesn't fail, Liberia wins.
Yep.
We need to see it like that.
Okay.
And do right by our own self and by our own people.
Thank you, Mr. Maulo. Thank you so much. Let me bring this caller on your area code. The first number is 554, or the last number is 9785. Are you there?
Hey, Gerald. How you doing? My name is Jesse Farmer.
How are you, Jesse?
I'm doing good. I just called to say thank you for the show and also to say thank you to J. Randy Dapo. That's my man. And I started knowing Dapo from 2017.
Yeah.
So, but I just want to let him know that he should not be deterred with whatever people will say about him, because I know he's a man of principle. I had dealt with him several times, and I know I have respect for him, even though he myself argue sometimes, but I never insulted him because he's a man of principle and he gets value. And so if he comes out to say these things about Mr. Cummings, it is a right thing for people to actually listen. Let us not vote for people based on party business or based on friendship.
Yeah.
We are tired of living the life the Liberian people are living right now.
Mm-hmm.
If the people who in power right now, when they arrive on vacation or in their birthday, they go to Ghana, they go to Ivory Coast, they go to other countries for vacation. When they get sick, they travel out of the country. But the very people are there suffering. So we are to encourage people, make them to know, like Randy is saying, we have to educate the people. You don't even have to leave your party. But once you go in our booth to vote, remember that you are voting for your future, you're voting for your children, and you're voting for your children. You see?
Yeah. Okay.
Who do want to live in a better place?
Thank
so
you.
I just called to say thank you, and Randy, continue to do what you do. We all will work together. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me go to Johnson. Are you there? Culver.
Yes, sir. That's my second time calling.
Okay, let me hold you, Culver. Let me hold you there and take this caller from Portland. Hello? Hello?
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, my name is Lucien Barney, calling from Pennsylvania.
Okay, go ahead.
And my question, Yeah, my question goes to Ronnie in the studio there with you. Mr. Ronnie, good afternoon. And my question has to do with I always used to follow you, Mr. Ronnie. He was a man that used to talk all the beautiful thing about President we are government, even before he could become president. I'm a young man. I was born around the 80, 84, 85, like that. And today, when we look at leadership in our country, I don't know who we can really trust. Because people that we look up to, that's supposed to stand up for, actually state with integrity, we're not seeing it today, especially for we, the young people of Liberia. We see that in America here, we wait for other people day in, day out. We come here, we didn't have no experience, people give us the opportunity. But we see most of our educated people like you, and all the meaningful Liberians that have been in the country for maybe 40, 50 years. We depend on you people to be able to make us to believe in ourselves. But most of the time for me, when I follow even news in America, and look at what's happening in our country, and I look at the division in Liberia, even here in America, it sometimes makes me hopeless. When I used to listen to you, we used to talk about President Weah, about all the good things. Today I see you talking about another good thing about Mr. Cummings. So my question has to do with we the young people now. Who can we actually believe when it comes to the growth of young people and to believe? Because, for example, when you work out as a child, sometimes you take your strength or your courage from your father. If your father...
Sorry. Are you done? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. So I was saying, Mr. Randy, he's still there with you. There's a senior brother that I used to listen to, and he used to always talk about President we are government. And today he didn't talk about we are government, talk about we are governments like this, like that. Today he's talking about President Cummings. My question has to do with, is that how the young people will be able to take over for people that are not stable or people that cannot really stand up for what they say? Today they will say this, tomorrow they say another thing.
Okay.
Is that how the going to be changed? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let me take this caller, and then I bring in Corva here. Let's go to this caller. Peter, are you there? Peter.
Yes, I'm here.
Good evening.
I'm here.
Good evening.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, first, I just want to say thanks for the show and thanks for providing a platform for us to all add our voices to our democracy. And that's what democracy is, just a marketplace of ideas. I wanted to say two things. The first thing I want to talk to was the people who have concern, and then talk to the young man who just got off the phone. The people who have concern about Randy used to support one political party, believing in an ideology, and now changes it. Well, if you say that he's a flip-flopper because he did that, you're saying science is flip-flopping. What I mean is science is just strictly based on information received. So you can have what makes good science is more science, is better science, right? Science look to disprove themselves all the time. The point I'm making is if we get more information, you are supposed to change. You're supposed to change based on information you get. So if Randy thought Weah was going to do X, Y, and Z, and Randy looked at it and said, nope, Weah's not doing X, Y, and Z, and he starts to investigate and said, well, I should have done more research because this man didn't do this, this, and this, so therefore we can't keep going further, and changes his mind because of that and look to see an ideology that he digs into, he investigates, he goes and meets the person. That's not flip-flopping. That's just making a decision, an educated decision. Yep. First thing. Next thing is to this young man I just got off, and he said who to talk to. First of all, I get it. I get it. And I think that a lot of people who support ANC or UP, they're missing the mark where they don't see why Liberian people supported George Weah and supported CDC. I quickly want to say this. My entire family was CDCians. Had I been in Liberia, would have been for CDC. I understand understand and get what the revolution was about. I understand how watching one group of people dominate the country, drive around in cars with AC on all day, their lives are so much better. They could get visas to leave all the things we aspire to be, all those people in government, and you had no access. George Weah winning this election, especially because of his background, I see how people connect to that. I'm a poor person. My mom was a market woman. I understand how the narrative works. Hitler did the same thing. He connected with the people. Doesn't mean that his intentions were good. I understand what UP was doing, how people can easily turn away from. My father, like I said, my entire family at CDC. I understand that. This is why the whole approach to you don't have to be an ANCer to support Mr. Cummings. If you love Liberia, is so brilliant because it's true. Okay, people are not going to support something that an ideology to believe in. We need to be reaching out to these CDCians because they really truly believe their lives are going to be better under Weah. They really thought Weah could get the job done. They believed it. They were not just saying that. And he was relatable because they themselves were poor. So to them, it was them versus us. Those people now see that Weah cannot get the job done. We should be looking to embrace these people and bring them on board. Not to say, oh, you're CDC and so therefore, no. Therefore, nothing. It is but self-interest about these people's lives is about Liberia first. Weah was given an opportunity and a chance. He couldn't get the job done. It's now time to learn and look at someone who can get the job done. Let's investigate Cummings. For those who haven't done it, ask their questions. I believe in what Cummings is doing because I understand his grounds up approach, because I've looked at democracies and countries that were poor and how they became wealthy. Southeast Asian countries that came after World War II. These countries were under imperialist power, and they were able to build. How were they able to do that? From the grounds up, by putting these technocrats in position, by having good governance. There's a formula to building a country. And when I listen to this man speak, I get that he understands the formula. That's why I support him. So I think that our job is now to get our people. I'm not even going to use the word educate, just inform, because when you say educating Liberia now, it turns into you sounding like an elitist. You sound like the UPN. To inform our people, to give them the information of how other countries do it. Let's look to embrace other people. Thank you so much for allowing me to add my voice to the conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, let me go back to our studio guest, Mr. Dapo. I guess you listened to all the callers. I'm gonna shut the line off for now, and we look forward to doing this another day. But just to have you all informed, if you out there, whether you from UP, CDC, the Liberty Party, or a Liberian who want us to discuss these issues, give us a call. Just call me and we'll set up the date and time. We are looking for a suitable time to bring the People's Program right here on this platform. There's going to be aired on this platform. And we also working out modalities to have it aired in Liberia. Because, Rennie, the action is not on Facebook. The action will be in Bokanjide. The action will be in Kolahon. The action will be in Bon Kaliman. The action will be in Bui. The action will be in Sanaye. The action will be in Mowen. The action will be in Fishtown, Plebo, Harper, Picnic, and you just name it. So we'll do all we can to get this program air on the local radio in our country, so that our people we will understand. Even if you want to speak your vernacular, we can do it right here. And let's just talk to our people, because Liberia is at a serious crossroad. I said something, you remember 2010? I said, if we made a terrible mistake 2011, we signed a contract with the devil. Everybody said, Jiro is getting ready for his craziness. And I mean it. We made this mistake. We go back. 6 years from now, I will not be a young guy to be around fighting for any electoral position. This is the time. Absolutely. This is the time for serious people to wake up and say, let's make this change. Let's find a manager. Let's find somebody who is marketable, somebody who can sit, like you said, Rennie, somebody who can sit in a room and do a presentation, somebody who can sit and talk to somebody. And, you know, when I used to work for Toyota, there's something called the 5 safety feature. If you don't understand the 5 safety feature of Toyota and can pass 26 tests, you can't sell for Toyota, meaning you don't have product knowledge. So we need somebody who has product knowledge, somebody who can sell. And so when I heard you and I listened to Chief Colley, and I said, okay, so the guys were calling me political preacher. How in the world now I see the guys crossing across this street and seeing what we have seen? You know, I would say this, right? God asked Jeremiah, said, what do you see? He said, I see a bunch of armor 3. And God said, I'm ready to perform or to bring to pass my word. So I think this country is at a crossroad, and it would take innovative thinkers, right, to look across the aisle and say, if we don't do this now, right, Bali Island will remain Bali Island for the longest. Claratown will remain Claratown for the longest. Vartan, all those places. Rennie, you being an environmentalist, look at that fine landscape around Claratown. I was privileged one night a friend of mine took me out to eat, and we went somewhere down Minneapolis, went along the lake to eat, man. And I said, listen, if we can turn Claratown into this and move all these people from Claratown and relocate them and have companies build hotels and stuff here, people could make good money from the Providence Island and Claratown get, you know, man, Rennie, do you think we need a holy bath?
No, I don't think
to revive our country.
Yeah, we don't need. We technically we need a political information should be given to our people. And, you know, let me piggyback on the last caller or the previous caller before the conversation, and I would like to thank him for the beautiful way he really answered that question from the young man. And I'm not going to add more to it because I think he clearly came from the line that I was trying to push. Because as an engineer, we look at data to make decisions, and you know we are not basing things just on opinions.
Randy Meta Dakinan says she's standing by to be speaking Belen to her people. So probably maybe we'll find time to Leslie Yard and all the people for her to come on here and speak some Bele to her people.
Yeah. So the young man who followed me back in the days, then he's not alone. There were many young people who follow me in the day because to the previous caller, my take, and I think I mentioned that at the beginning of the show, that many of us gravitated towards Mr. Weir because he shares so many denominators with us. And, you know, we came from the slum, we were poor, we hustle. So there was a natural likeness and natural love that we all gave to Mr. Weir. But what did he start to do? We put him out there. We saw him as a best quality product. But when he began to take the leadership of the country, what he started to do, we look at the first year, the second year, and things were not turning up. For me, I left and became independent in 2018, still giving him that opportunity. And you imagine, Gerald, in 2018, just this year, last month, is when I decided to move on, to break away and say, you know what, I don't want to be independent anymore. I want to find a party. So to the young man who called from Pennsylvania, I remember that voice. He was very supportive of me. But when I started to critique President Weir, and today now I am here supporting Cummings, all I want him to do this time around is firstly to understand that, like the previous quarter said, when you're in a direction, and I mean when you're on the direction in your pathway, if you don't get to see where actually you're going, you have to pause, you have to stop, you have to make up your mind and recalibrate yourself. The direction that Mr. Weir is taking this country, it don't worth my time because it doesn't provide the opportunity as a young man who is very hopeful for his future. I have gone through Mr. Cummings' vision, and I will encourage him to take time and come and look at what I'm doing with the vision let him follow me with an independent mind from now to December. And I also encourage him. You see here, Gerald, I want you to take a look here. You see this here, Gerald? I printed this thing from my office today. This is what I read on my spare time. This is Mr. Cummings' vision. That included 5 wives. I read this thing because I'm saying to myself, if I meet anyone who want to have a conversation from yesterday, I should be able to present in a discussion in the awareness form to the individual. So I have reason why I left the CDC and Mr. Weah, because there is nothing today that anyone in Liberia can point at. The young man that just came on, he picked up the phone and called across the 15 counties and said, I want to see 10 people each from each county. Let them list for you, whether they are electrician, whether they are masonry, whether they are carpenter. None of those things have been given to the young people, and they are the future of the country. That made Mr.
And you know,
Weah
Randy, you just shared something a few minutes ago, right? You took my mind all the way back. In I think it was 2012.
Yeah.
Watch this. In 2012, former Minister Amara Khan, former Ambassador Jeremiah Solontel, and others came to Minnesota to explain to the Liberian people, to talk about the poverty reduction strategy.
Yeah, I remember that time.
Not many Liberians in Minnesota those days read the poverty reduction strategy paper. And so a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, hinted at me and he said, Jerome, are you still in Minnesota? I said, yes. He said, oh, the minister and others will be here. They're going to be talking about the PRS. I said, you kill them in. The PRS has 3 months from now. 3 months from now, the PRS will not exist. So what are they explaining to Liberian? What are they telling them? So when I saw that in your hand, took my mind back to 2 things.
Yeah.
The Weah administration poverty reduction paper that you can't see. I don't even have a copy of it. But I remember while I was in the country when Madam Salif introduced the poverty reduction strategy, I had a copy of it. So I decided to quiz Minister Amara Khan and few of his ministers that were traveling with him those days on 2 sectors of the PRS, the educational sector and the security sector. How can you come to America after spending 5 years of your time, now you're in the second term, come to the United States of America to explain the poverty reduction strategy to the people when you have 3 months, in less than 3 months, the PRS will die. And you come to talk about the different sectors in the PRS. Now, the question to them was, you're explaining these things to us, or these things to us. How many persons here have a copy of the poverty reduction strategy? How many persons here are convinced that under this administration that was a recipient of donor funding can tell us that the teachers in the rural parts of Liberia, their salary can commensurate their work? How many kids are there in the rural parts that are not sitting on dead bricks? How many persons in here can tell us that our borders that are porous, that the immigration is adequately equipped to curtail illegal entries in our country? Guess what? It entered into a heated commotion. One of the deputy minister decided to fight me that night in the Liberian Hall. And he was stopped by Dr. Allen and Minister Gabriel Williams. And they told him, say, this guy know what he's talking about, because the man was the only man who interviewed all the cabinet minister in 2 months to explain government policy. So Cummings knew what he was talking about. And that's what we see. So it's good that you have it. But I think what the ANC need to do is to make sure that people in different cities where they have their constituents, not only their constituents, but in other area where they have different offices or party members, make sure that people are reading these things. Maybe do a voice over of them. The ANC have different platforms that they can make these things available. Do it in the different vernaculars. Make our people to understand, because, you know, visual aid helps. Also, explaining it in the people local vernacular helps. If one person was not willing to change the trajectory yesterday, let the ANC be the one to change the trajectory now. The big terminology will not help.
Yep.
It can help Manjua, who's selling her cassava somewhere in Fishtown. It can help somebody in Moware. You got to do something to break it down to them. It's going to help you because you want to market a product. But what about the recipients in the towns and villages?
True.
But is there any other thing you want us to touch on? And
no, I think
before we leave, somebody say they might likely see you in Joseph Boakai camp next week, next month.
No. Here's the thing here. Yes, the principal, and I want to tell Brother Jesse. I want to tell him thank you. I campaign for Mr. Weir to defeat Mr. Boakai, and there is no way that I can campaign for Boakai to go against Cummings or against Weir. I cannot do that. I won't use the word never. I cannot do that. I would rather self-terminate myself from politics. Like I said from the initial start of my political engagement, I was leaning towards Weir or Cummings, and I made my choice to be towards Cummings. I'm not going to Weir. I'm not going to Mr. Boakai, but only Mr. Cummings. And the reason here is Mr. Cummings is more engaging. He works at the highest level in corporate America. I am now trying to get my way up there, making my progress. And we relate to things, we relate to principle, we relate to policy, and his engagement with me, Gerald. I will say this: of all the years that I campaigned with Mr. Weir, sitting with Mr. Weir in Philadelphia has been the only time that I ever sat with Mr. Weir. But less than a month after meeting Mr. Cummings, he has been very engaged with me. He calls me or we talk. We discuss other issues. He asks for family members of mine. We have the conversation. So that is something that the young man who spoke earlier about my interest, Mr. Cummings is not only a leader, but he is an individual who have love for everyone that he comes across. And I would say this to people: do not stand far away and judge Mr. Cummings. You have to engage him. And most of the folks in the ANC too, you have to engage them to get to know them. And that is why I'm saying to many Liberians, do not leave your party to support and vote for Mr. Cummings. You can remain in your party. It happened in Pennsylvania. The people in Pennsylvania voted for Donald Trump, both Democrat and Republicans, and have been elected. And the same people after 4 years, they remain in their party, but they joined the Democrat and voted Donald Trump out of office. It's possible that we can introduce that to the Liberian people. And I think we are doing extremely well. For this platform and vision of Mr. Cummings, we are part of the strategy team. We collaborate with every ANC across each district in the country. And I think Miata Takina has said something. All it takes is to craft some little thing with the voice over, and then we start to utilize those things as part of the campaign strategy with the objective and look at the different demographic and targets area. So we are making progress. I'm very much committed to this thing. I've never been so confident, and my confidence is based on the fact that Mr. Cummings and I can have this conversation. I can suggest to him as well. The independent supporter of Mr. Cummings, he is aware of that. He appreciates that. He bought the idea, and he's already go for it. Whatever it takes, whatever you can do to make sure that I get elected through every one of you guys, I can guarantee you that I will do the best I can. Yes, so this one, guys, is the real deal, Gerald. This one is the real deal. I can feel it in my bones. I can feel it in my heart. I'm very confident on this one here. And those who are doubting, well, Mr. Weir betrayed all of us. He's there now. We see what he's doing. There is nothing he's going to do. So again, I also believe that we cannot judge Mr. Cummings if we don't put him in there. 5 years ago, we said to the Liberian people, Mr. Weir is in the Senate. The Senate is so intertwined. Let's give him the executive. The people of Liberia agree. This time around, Mr. Cummings is trying to be the president. He has done things on the ground that we see, and everything he has done, he are all on there. They are all in this report here. You can take the report and go across the town in Monrovia and even start looking for the school, the generator, everything he did. He listed those things in there. So these are facts that we can use as a public audit. If I give it to anybody that live in the country, all they need to do is to just look at the name and location and go and find this thing. That is the reality that he's putting down, and this is what got me behind him. All right. So I want to encourage everyone. Again, you don't have to leave your party. Just come and let us support Mr. Cummings. and take Mr. Weir out of office come the general election in 2023. Your future is in your hands. Yes, guys, the future is in your hands. It is your time. It is your opportunity. 2030 is coming. That is going to be the future of young people on the continent of Africa. Madam Ellen Johnson said, he said by the year 2030, Gerald, they were going to make Liberia a middle class country. Now, how many years do we have to go? We got 8 more years to hit 2030. Do you think Mr. Weir can take 6 years and do that? Absolutely not. Mr. Weir and his friends are already met their 2030 goal. They got homes, they got houses. Man, they did not engage the people to talk about these things, to say, you know what, 2030 is coming. Your children need to be adequately prepared, job skills. Mange is justifying the act of using corrupt money to build homes and not to build the capacity of our people. Our people capacity must be built because we have to hand over leadership to them. It's called hand over and take over. We don't want a legacy where people will leave home. Home in the absence of a mentor and a well-measured mind will not move our country forward. So again, I would like to say thank you, Gerald, for the opportunity. As always, I'm available. If anything touches your heart, you want to come for us to discuss it, be my guest, let me know. All right, I'm always here. And to those who follow me tomorrow morning, 4 a.m. in the morning, we're going to continue the campaign locally, Gerald. We are on the ground now, Gerald. Our voices are on the ground. We are engaging the people. So if you have the time, you want hour behind me, when I'm getting out at 4, you probably will be trying to get to bed at 3 a.m. I encourage you to at least, deprive yourself of sleep one of these days and come in and listen to J. Randy. We're pushing this thing here, and I'm very committed to it. There's no looking back this time around. The good thing about it.
I want to say thank you so much, Randy. Like always, I always say this. This time I'm talking. When I see this a need to discuss issues, but I think because looking at what is unfolding in our country and we find ourselves at a crossroad, I think we need to talk more. So we're going to talk in the back end, set up a date and time where we can do this often so that we can help our people and help our country and help Mr. Cummings. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and I want to thank my wife. She has been very, very, very helpful in this progress. And she's been very, very helpful in this progress. And I'm just thankful to her for giving me this opportunity. And like she said, you love what you do. I see the smile on your face when you're on Facebook. It makes you happy. Whatever make you happy, she support me. So I just want to thank her.
She wasn't happy because finally I got you. Finally, now you can listen to me. 2016, we were fussing and fighting. I said, Randy, stand down. You said, my man. I said, Randy, what I see, you can't see. Stand down. You said, my man. Yeah. And you remember we went on Game On Show. You threw it at me. Myself, I sent one big bomb. I think they banned me for coming on the show. I said, so Randy trying to throw a bomb. So let me just send one big shot, and then I'll be out of here. So I'm happy that you have to say wise men change it for the good.
I had so many battles that I fought with so many people, close friends of mine. Yeah, I mean, I want people to understand that politics is a game of strategy, and in the strategy mode, you don't want to be distracted by friends because your personal friends can make you to be a soft target.
So
and that's one thing that I learned. Yeah, so I tend to be very defensive when I'm in flight because I want to maintain that consistency and that energy. So Gerald coming in as my friend, he's going to look at my soft spot and start to break me a little bit. So, but I know you are very, measured guy. We will fall apart and we'll come together. But I think this conversation will
we come a long way, man. I don't know if we can fall apart now. Long way.
No, I'm seeing this too. I mean, there's the girl too. They call Abby Tyler. She got this medical show or Healthy Living with Abby Tyler. Abby Tyler, I took that picture. There's a picture I posted of her. We took that picture. She's like, Randy, this is the last picture we'll take because the road you're taking, you will come back. I'm going to be watching you. And over the weekend, she said, are you back now? I said, yes.
Well,
it was a good experiment that I went through, but I think I took a lesson learned from that. And I think this time around, this decision is good. We are giving Joe, we had the opportunity, but he himself make that opportunity to be a disappointment, and and missed opportunity for himself. So we are bringing all the young people to come and join this party called the ANC and support the CPP. Together with Mr. Cummings, we can change that country for them, not for us. I'm not fighting for myself no more, Gerald. I mean, you know from the beginning how we used to look. We are changing gradually now. We are hitting the ages now, so we want to make sure that
a friend of mine trying to advise me. Well, you don't know Randy. We brought Randy to radio, so Randy can baptize me. I baptized him to radio. just leave that whole. He got nowhere to run. I got Randy. I got Randy. Even if nobody was going to bring him in, I was going to bring Randy in. I got Randy. Don't worry, he's not going anywhere.
If we start a discussion now, we'll have to go another extra hour. So let's do that one. But what I would say is the guy who got me talking today on radio is nobody else but the Gerald Cummings you're looking at right here. He is the one who got me talking. I always will be on the phone, but he always said, you are an environmentalist. You have to come here. Let's talk about the environment. And I was so resistant. So if you ever hear me or see me talking, this is the man who started the whole thing. He opened that door and I went into Disneyland and started to explode. So when he comes by and says, Randy, you hitting the wrong road, I need to listen. But now I'm glad that he said, Randy, you're on the right track. So Gerald, thank you so much for
thank
the
you, man.
opportunity.
Dapo, thank you.
It. And good night, bro. And good night to everybody too. Good night to everybody. No broadcast today. This is broadcast here. So join me in the morning and then we'll be here, Gerald. Bye to everyone.
Okay. Well, folks, on this note, this is how we love to leave you. I want to say thank you so much for joining us. The invitation is yours to join us sometime this week. As soon as we can come up with a date and time, we're going to let you know the program will be broadcast right here. We're also looking for a way to also have a summercast of this broadcast in Liberia. Until we talk to you again, the name is Gerald Cummings, the agent of positive change. Thank you for listening to us on the People's Program, The Positive Show, a.k.a. ANC Flight 2023. Until I talk to you, in my native vernacular, we say, "Bamungino."